everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Startup Stories. Today we have Tracy joining us. Welcome, Tracy, to the show.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I'm super great, thanks.
Perfect. So just to start off, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your business?
Well, this depending on which business you want me to talk about. I was born and raised here in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan, and then moved over to the Alberta side for those that are listening. Born and raised here in Lloydminster. I'll be 61 here in December, and so been here all of my life and continue to be here for the rest of my life, I'm sure. But we have several businesses in Lloydminster, but the first business that we started up was Titus Tools in 1997. And a little bit about myself. I've been married for 40 years. I have 2 daughters named Kayla and Hallie, and I have a grandson named Asher. And my wife is Corrine, and we've been married once again for 40 years. We have another business not too far from here that my wife owns called the Silver Mannequin, a ladies' clothing store, beautiful store. And then the major business that we've had here for many years is a downhole oil and gas tool company called Titus Tools, which we started in 1997.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I actually didn't know that you were a startup client before. Wendy had told me that you worked with startup in the past. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I worked with startup in the past, not so much as a client, but more on some projects that they were doing here. We did just one recently here last year on kind of like a Dragon's Den Shark type thing, and we called it The Pitch, where we had some people that were just needing to catch a break here in Lloydminster, and we helped them with some of the funding to get them started in some of their businesses or existing businesses. That we did that last around, well, the snow was on the ground, so it would have been last fall or late or early winter. We did that last year,
Yeah, so do you want to tell me a little bit more about how that pitch competition kind of played out?
Well, we started Titus Tools in 1997, and it's kind of a unique, I won't even say unique, but just the way I like to express of what we did with Titus Tools is we started Titus Tools up in 1997. We wanted to give back. And, most people would want to start the business to make money and then give back, but we wanted to start the company up to give, and to give to several things, what was ever on our hearts. And part of that was when we started doing that, the business would come, and it did. And we've had the business for over 25 years, which has lateraled out for us into other businesses, such as our real estate properties and our clothing design stores, and some other cool activities that we do that I get to do on the side, which is some kickboxing and MMA stuff that we have, a gym now, and some clothing designs on that stuff. But circling back to the competition, or I won't even call it a competition because everybody wins. So if everybody wins, I don't know if I'd call that a competition, but we set up a thing with Startup Lloydminster with Wendy Plandowski and Holly, and I'm trying to think of the other lady's name that had the booster juice. Kara. And so we got together and we started brainstorming about how I could, and our companies with my wife, could give back to the community. And they ended up finding us some candidates for the pitch where they would come in. And the fun part is that the pitch was it was a $500 bursary, $500 that they would get to help with their business. And they found us some candidates to do it. The cool part is that we kind of, I guess the prank is that we were going to give them all the money anyways, but they didn't know that. And on top of that, to make a real cool story, Startup Lloydminster gave out a whole bunch of their money and time value to each of them. Plus, we gave them each a $2,500 bursary. Well, that night they walked out with over $4,000 each.
Wow. That
they thought they were only going to win $500 on. So it was just a tremendously really cool night.
Yeah, that's a really good surprise.
Yeah.
So with your journey with startup, what are some of the resources and services that you've noticed that we provide people? Because I know you mentioned with like you starting your business is you want to give back, and that's definitely what startup wants to do too, is give back to the community and help all these people succeed in their entrepreneurial journey. So what are things that you've witnessed?
I think startup is unique. I just love what you guys are doing here. I think that from the social media side to leaning in with other businesses, to finding out what their needs are, to having the workshops, having other business people get involved, which is the part I love. I'm a high school dropout, Sierra. I'm you know, I've got a passion for entrepreneurship. I got a passion for business. I tell everybody I have a degree in common senseology, and I hope that's carried me a long ways. But startup just gives people like me that don't have high education degrees or anything like that, but have good common sense in business and have done things that were hopefully good in the right way, to be able to come in and show other people through startup that they've got other opportunities and they can make it as well. And using some of my knowledge and resources to be able to use inside of the Startup Lloydminster, the Startup Lloydminster facility and whatever that could end up being. Startup Lloydminster, where even when I was starting out, pardon the pun, where you could go to a local place that had a lot of resources that could help you lean in on finding or refining the business of what you were trying to do in your company. And that's just a blessing in this city that we've got a place like this to have that opportunity. And not only that, they will find other people to bring into their repertoire, if that's the words to use, to maybe look at helping you with the stuff that you need help with. And if they don't have all the answers, there might be business people out there that do. That's the best part of startup for me, is they find entrepreneurs and business people that are willing to help mentor other people in business that are starting up or maybe already in business that just need maybe something that they need help with. And the cool part about that is they say, you always hear the saying, Sierra, where people say, geez, I just went through that. Let me show you what I did to help you with that. Oh, that's awesome, because I didn't know what was going on in that situation, and now you can. And that could be from banking to how to set up your books, like your recording of your books, to your cash flows, to your financials, all of that, and saying, hey, I used to use this, but our people use this. And we don't get enough of that kind of help. And it could be from your banking to finding a good lawyer, to finding a good accountant, to helping you with resources or social media. Nowadays, if you don't hear the word social media in your business, you're probably falling behind somewhere.
Yeah, having experience and a sense of community is really what makes things like invaluable and really just takes things to the next level.
Yeah,
I find.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
without
agree.
that, it's kind of hard to get going.
I agree.
Yeah. Last episode, we actually had Aaron Buckingham on.
Yes, I know Aaron.
Yeah, and we were talking about startup and how the name startup is a little bit misleading, because how you mentioned startup helps businesses that are just starting up, and then also businesses that have been going for like months, years,
Yeah.
and we have to help people start, learn, grow, and thrive. That's our whole new thing. So do you just want to get a little bit into how we help businesses that are already going?
Startup, maybe you should call it startup and continue, Lloydminster.
Yeah.
Maybe there's just another word that you need to put on there, because there's always that saying that says it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And there's a fellow that I sat down with who had done tremendously well in the oil and gas for years, and we were sitting one time in Calgary, and he said, you know what, there's millions and millions of books out there and showing people how to make $1 million. But what about the books out there that should be written and people should be reading, and how to keep it? Mm-hmm. And I think the moral of the story with that, Sierra, is that what do we do when we start up and we start our business? That's great, but how do you continue to have your business? And there might be a few particular different ways in how you want to have a business. When people say, well, I'm a business person. Okay, is that business creating enough finance for you to live off of? Or is that business creating enough finance for you to have a hobby? And that's all you want, because maybe your husband does really well or your wife does really well, whichever. Or do you want that business to be something that is full-time, and you end up with a bunch of different franchises around, or whatever the case may be? So from a startup perspective, you've got the startup side of it and you've got the continuing side of it. And just for those reasons, that's resources that, and I'll keep using the word resources. Startup is really a very resourceful place for people to come and find out what it is that they're missing in the stuff that they're trying to do in business, especially in this area. And I think I hope that might, if you found that in the dictionary, that might be the real definition of what startup is.
Yeah, for sure. So you kind of mentioned things with people like thinking about the future with their business. You're a really busy guy. You have lots of businesses. What kind of do you see in the future for your businesses?
I think that the more and more I study, and I'm coming into this. You guys were raised on it, your generation. I'm coming into it with the age that I am, but I truly believe that that the progression of creating successful in the financial side of things is looking and really finding out what's out there in the health side of things. I think is important. But I really think that the platforms on social media, whether that's on the internet or whatever, is going to create a lot of things for people as well. But on another side note that's really about Startup Lloydminster, I've said this before, is that, get around some people that you can go out with, and whether that's your husband and wife or your boyfriend and girlfriend or a good friend, and get sat around a table and figure out some things that are creating answers to problems. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times just being in a business saying, I don't know what I want to do, could end up being something that, as much as finding a situation that needs being resolved, or something of a problem that needs being solved. And my wife and I have come up with 4 things that we think is part of that. What do people need? What do people like? What do people want? And what makes money while you're sleeping? Now, we're in the oil and gas production now, so while that oil is pumping and I'm sleeping, I'm still making money, which is a great thing for me, and I appreciate that. But that doesn't mean that's the case for everybody. So what do people want? Well, there's lots of stuff out there that people want. They may want a new watch. They may want this new water container. They may want this hat. So what can you create that they want? Well, what do they like? They like nice food. They like to eat great things. They like flavorful steaks and good hamburgers. They like nice clothes. They like to take trips. So you start planning around that side of things. But what do people need? People need health care. People need to be well. People need medication. People need to be sure they're taken care of. People need vitamins. They need good food. Need is something that you need. I need food. That's going to supersede the new hat I like, or the new watch I want. But so those are the things that Corrine and my wife Corrine and I are always talking about. What is it that you're always looking for out there? And that could be simply from traveling to seeing something in Lloydminster that we could do really, really well on. I think of batteries. Our cell phone batteries last a day and you got to charge them up again. But what if you could get a battery that lasted for a month in your cell phone that didn't harm you and lasted a month that you didn't have to charge it all the time? Just little things that made it easier for you to get around and be more convenient for you. Mm-hmm. And how do we get people to live longer? How do we get people to have better memories? How do we get people to be able to make it easier for them to do things on this earth? And so those are things that I'm always thinking of, even here in Lloydminster, that opportunities are everywhere. It doesn't have to be in giant cities to create opportunity. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Lloyd is actually really good for creating opportunities, and usually we have a really good group of people that come out of this community too.
Well, the trade area of Lloydminster, back when I was doing some radio advertising and things like that, I wouldn't be surprised that we have at least 200,000 people to draw on from the radius of Lloydminster. We're a tremendously resourceful city. College, radio stations, television stations. Canadian Tire we have the second largest Canadian Tire in Western Canada in Lloydminster. It's its own. You just can go there, and it's like going to West Edmonton Mall. Just go to Canadian Tire and hang out there. It's a great store.
Yeah.
Home Hardware, Superstore, Walmarts, all the resources that we have here in the city. The Lakeland College, just the resources, the doctors, the nurses, the hospitals, the home care places. Lloydminster is a tremendously resourceful city. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to find that, and the entrepreneurial side of it, from me being an oil and gas guy, the amount of oil and gas inventions and things that have come out of this city has just been amazing. Titus Tools alone, we hold several patents where those tools go around the world that were created here in Lloydminster, that are going out to other different oil patches around the world. We send our stuff to India, Australia, Kazakhstan, Romania, Indonesia, all of these different countries we've sent our tools out to that were all formed and designed here in Lloydminster. So, you know, Lloyd has a lot of opportunities and a lot of creative people in this city.
Yeah. We're on our second last question. So,
Sure.
With knowing startup and kind of what we do, how we work, would you recommend startup to other aspiring entrepreneurs?
Well, if I was an entrepreneur starting up right now and I had no clue about how to do anything else, but knew that there was some kind of information resource center with great people around it that you could go to and just even have a clue of how business works or how a business takes to start up, and just had a passion for it but didn't know where to go with it, Startup Lloydminster would be the number one place you would walk into and say, please, I need some help here. I've got this passion for wanting to start up whatever business it is. What could you do to help me with that? And I think you would be tremendously well on your way if you walked in the door here at Startup Lloydminster. I really do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Perfect. So do you have any advice to aspiring entrepreneurs?
Once again, finding out if it's something, what do people want? What do people like? What do people need? Maybe what makes money while you sleep? Having a passion for it. Write some of this stuff down. Speak some of that out, whether that's to yourself or whatever. They say the more that you are writing stuff down, but that you actually look over your notes and read your notes out loud, resonates more with you about doing something than you would if you just read it. So that's number one. Number two would be is for starting up entrepreneurs, what do you have that's available around you that makes you want to do that? And you hear so many people say, well, I want to start this up. Okay, but what have you done? To me, some of the things that are going to want you starting that up is probably finding out if you have a name for your company. Second of all, if you have some kind of an account set up for your company, and starting on those roads of saying, because when you hear most people say, I want to start something up, and then you question them and they say, well, do you have a name? Well, no, I haven't got anything picked out. Well, do you have a bank account? No, I don't have a bank account. That stuff costs nothing. Yeah. You can Google search a name and you can go down to the bank and start up an account for nothing. Well, you might have to put $5 in it or something to start the account. Yeah. But what it does is it sets your mind up to saying, I'm actually going to go and do something for this. Hey, I'm training for a marathon, Sierra. Oh, how's that working out? Well, I haven't started yet. But I'm going to do this marathon. Well, you got to start running. You got to start doing 5K a day or 2K a day, and then till you get to 10K and 15K and 20K and deciding how many K you're doing on this marathon. You will not be able to do that unless you're training. Entrepreneurship is no different. We think that entrepreneurship is not training. It is training. What are you doing yourself to get yourself trained up, to get yourself into that mindset to be ready for that business? So if that business is a marathon, or treat it like a marathon, you're going to need training to get to that spot in that. So I look at that from my side on the entrepreneurial side, and the heavy lifting that seems so heavy as you start out, whether that's making $100 to $1,000 or getting people around you or things that you needed to start your business seems so heavy. But as you get stronger and you get more used to that and you've been training, all of a sudden those things are so small in your company now that were so big. And I look back 25 years ago even then and thinking those things were so huge, from getting an office desk to a computer to, getting to the lawyers to get the company registered and all that. Those things we just do all the time now, like going out for a regular meal. But they were big deals to us back then. But that's because we've trained ourselves. And as an entrepreneur, a businessman, all you do is continue to keep training to handle bigger things. And if you're handling bigger things, it's because you're going to be doing bigger things. You can't do these giant things starting out that you can now because you've done that for so long. That's probably some of the words of advice to that. And does it have to be something you're passionate about? I hear people say that all the time, Sierra, about being passionate about something. Oh, I'm just so passionate about this is what I want to do. Well, I'm an oil guy. I love fashion design. I love designing things. I love creating things. But that's not where I started. And so many people say, well, I want to be a singer, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be that. Well, go start something that creates revenue for you so that you might be able to get going into that or can do that later. So my line that I always have used is, I don't know everything, Sierra, but I'll tell you what I know. And the other one is, do what you can do now so you can do what you want to do later.
Yeah.
Do what you can do now so you can do what you want to do later. If that's what you want to do and be a fashion designer or a singer or whatever, you might have to go and work at a job riding forklift or packing groceries or doing something to create that so you can go do some recording or do whatever it is that you want to do or do whatever it is in that business to get you to that place. Very few times do I hear that people that are passionate about something that they ended up doing that for a living and created that. They probably started with something first and then got themselves into that. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with people saying, I'm passionate about this and this is what I'm going to do for a living. But then that passion has to make you a living. If that passion isn't making you a living, then go make a living so that you can be passionate about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's also good just to be like mindful. Like you never want your passion to become just a job to you. Because I feel like that happens with people too.
Yeah.
Is they start a business that they're passionate about and it's going really well for them. They're really busy. Then they start to get super, super busy, get burnt out. And then they're like, I don't like doing this anymore just because they've done it too much. So it's like finding that even balance between the two.
And let me tell you another line that Robert Haverchek from Dragon's Den says. He says, I'd rather be tired than poor. So if you think that you're just going to do all of this stuff without putting some hustle to it, well then you may just need to find something where it's a very calm, cool, collective job and you make this much money and you're happy with that. And that's fine. But I'd rather be tired than poor. So that's just me. That's not to be offensive to anybody listening or anything. And what the moral of that story is that you're going to have to put some hustle in if there's some things you want to achieve. And there's another saying that I say to people. People want what you have, but they don't want to do what you do. People want what you have, but they don't want to do what you do. And that just doesn't work. You have to do some things to get the things that you want to do. And that might be just a way of life. That might be giving back. I tell people, it's not about all the things you can own. What if it's about all the things you can give? Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Not about all the things that you own, but all the things that you can give. So that you did your photography and videography and the things that you're passionate about, that you had the opportunity to just give that back and still make a good living at what you're doing. But the moral of the ethics and the drive for you is that you just could give it back. There's not a lot people could say if that's what your motives were. Mm-hmm. Just a thought. Yep. And part of that is that Startup Lloydminster gives you the opportunity to decide and help you with that. If it's stuff that you just want to do, that's just good stuff out there for people that are looking to try and create something out there. And that might be by partnership, that might be by people just single-handedly doing that themselves. I just think that Startup Lloydminster for that. That's my wheelhouse, Sierra. I love business. I love helping people in business. That's why I love Startup Lloydminster.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice. That is all of my questions for you. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. For everyone listening as well, you can find this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and then we also post it on Startup Lloydminster's Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for tuning in and have a good one.